It's like, well, no, if I could do that, then I wouldn't have ADHD.
What up, Vibers? Welcome back to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast, now in season 7. This is the podcast where we stop pretending to be perfect and we start embracing the chaos. This show is proudly presented by Sucre. If you've been rocking with me for a while, you know how obsessed with Sucre I am. They are this incredible woman-owned perfume house that captures stories in a bottle. They are geeky, they're unique, and they just get it. And I have to mention, if you haven't smelled my collaboration with Sucre yet, you definitely got to check it out. It's called Why Did I Walk Into This Room? And it's a love letter to all of my ADHD friends out there. It smells like fresh baked cherry pie and cinnamon and radical self-acceptance. It's literally the vibe of this entire podcast in liquid form. So go check out sucrebay.com today and support the people who support this community right here and get yourself a bottle of this. It smells good. Okay, my friends, today is special. If you are currently staring at a pile of laundry in your doom chair, or you bought a planner 3 months ago and you haven't opened it up since, you need to turn the volume up right now. Because today I'm hanging out with my good friend, Chris Wang. Chris Wang is the founder of Shimmer ADHD Coaching, and she has helped thousands of adults with ADHD reach their goals. And today we're talking about their new tool. It's called Indie. But we aren't just talking about apps, my friends. We are digging deep into why the neurotypical systems out there, they fail us ADHD people. And we're breaking down 2 life-saving ADHD concepts, scaffolding and body doubling. Also, this episode has something very exclusive for my Patreon subscribers and my Facebook subscribers. There's a new segment that we're doing this season called Reverse the Mic, and Chris gets to flip the switch on me and ask me anything that she wants. In this segment, she asked me some really good questions, and let me just say, she doesn't hold back, and I love every second of it. If you want to hear that full exclusive ADHD Reverse the Mic segment with Chris Wang, make sure you subscribe on Patreon or on Facebook. But right now, let's get into the systems that actually work for adults with ADHD. Here is my conversation with Chris Wang. I want to welcome my friend Chris Wang back to the Vibe with Kai podcast. I want to start by giving you your flowers, Chris, if I may, because one of the things that I admire about you and the team over at Shimmer is that you truly do know how to build products. You really, on top of building products, you build community as well, which I really, really appreciate. And you seem to make it a mission to bring all of us ADHD content creators together like the Avengers, like the ADHD Avengers, which I really appreciate because I get to connect with a bunch of other ADHD content creators that I admire, that I find inspiration from. And it's really cool when we get to work on projects together. And that's because of you and your team at Shimmer. I'm just curious, what drives you to be that connector for not only ADHD content creators, but the ADHD community in general?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm actually working on this thing. When people compliment me, my initial reaction is to compliment them back. But I will hold off on your flowers, and thank you for giving me my flowers. I really
Yes.
appreciate you knowing this because it is something that's really important for us at Shimmer. And for me
Mhm.
personally, I think one thing after I got diagnosed and after I went super headfirst into this world, what I realized was there was kind of a disconnect between, I would say, a lot, not all, but a lot of experts and creators.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, another layer would just be everyone else with ADHD. So in the beginning, it was just about Shimmer being the bridge between experts and creators, because lived experience is really important. Advocacy is really important. And the creators have all the voice and all the eyeballs. And it's really important. And instead of experts, which some of them say, oh, you guys aren't psychiatrists, therefore you can't talk about it. And then the creators saying, oh, experts always make presentations that are full of research and they don't know how to talk to people and it's boring.
Yeah.
And so there's all these 2 narratives. And so we've tried really hard to be in the middle of that, to have quality information, but also bring in that lived experience. And as we did that more and more, it just became a natural extension to bring in the experts and the creators to do things together. Even our summit that we did in
Yeah.
August, that we tried really hard to make it a good balance of creators and experts so that people could be in one space and hear both instead of having to go to expert conferences to listen to those types of talks and then going online to listen to creator talks. And I guess the personal reason too is that it's just really fun and I get to learn from people who are really different, the lived experience side and the expert side. So yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
noticing that.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I was very fortunate to participate in that summit, which is just don't see stuff like that often. So it's very innovative, and I can always tell that you and the team put so much heart and hard work into it, and it's very selfless. So I really appreciate that. And as a result of that kind of work and the work that you do at Shimmer, you have facilitated thousands and thousands of adults that are reaching their goals through ADHD coaching, which is a staggering number. But I also, and that's great, but I also want to check in on you as a person, being a founder, being a creator, a content creator, being a human being that has to manage their own ADHD every single day. How are you doing? How is your battery doing these days when you have to wear so many hats?
Yeah, I feel like I'm so lucky that most of my interactions are with people who, for the first 5 minutes of the call, will help me talk through anything ADHD
Yeah.
related, like when I'm talking to a coach, when I'm talking to
Mhm.
our research team. If there's anything on my mind, I can just kind of shoot it out and they'll be able to talk me through it. So I do feel super, super supported. And I have access to just so much lived experience from like our members' perspective. So I never feel like I'm
Mhm.
alone, even if I'm not talking to anyone, because I hear all the stories. And then I'm also like constantly learning from our coaches. And if there's something that I'm struggling with, I can always just say, hey, we're doing a little social campaign. Give me all the information about this.
Yeah.
And I can be able to just learn about it. So I really enjoy that. And also this weekend, I just did a summit, what it was called, partnership summit. Yeah, partnership summit. I used another creator's template to do it, but that was really nice to be able to go into nature and then just reflect on the whole 2025 and then reflect on
Mhm.
2026 and what I want to achieve and a lot of the more like self-care well-being stuff within that as well. So
Right.
I think because I'm exposed to so many of these systems and like hearing what works and doesn't work for other people, it's kind of hard for me to ignore the things that I need to do to stay level-headed.
I get that. And I know today we're going to be talking a lot about systems and strategies, but I want to, if I may, go back for a second to when you were younger, I guess potentially even before your diagnosis. Do you remember any specific systems or coping mechanisms that I guess you invented without even realizing as a way to survive school or work without even realizing that it was a coping mechanism or a system that you're using to survive?
Yeah, so I have always been really good at identifying what the primary goal of something is. And so
Mm,
for school, having Asian parents, the primary goal was always just to get good grades and to get good
mhm,
grades in very specific classes mattered, like
right.
math and like English didn't matter. And I didn't get as good of a grade in English. And so I knew that. And I basically would just optimize for the test. And that, and for my long term learning, was actually very bad because I don't remember anything I learned in school. But
Yeah,
it got me through it and got me good grades where I needed it because I was very focused on this externally, I guess, imposed on me goal. And that was actually what the kind of genesis of what led me to my diagnosis when I was an adult, because there were no longer externally imposed goals. And once all those externally imposed goals and structures fell apart, that was actually when it became even more so glaringly obvious that I had ADHD. So I don't know if
right.
that was a healthy mechanism that I used or a system that I used, but now I'm able to take that type of thinking and bring it into my business and my personal life to be able to kind of cut out the noise. And you've seen
Right.
it in Indie as well, our new free
Mhm.
app. A lot of it is about helping people find that focus and define it for themselves and then cut out all the noise outside of it.
And I love that because I think it proves that we've always been trying to, I guess, hack our own brains even
Yeah.
before we even knew what we were dealing with. And I think that that's actually a perfect segue into the big topic that you and I are talking about today, which is like the systems that actually work versus some things that maybe sometimes make us just feel guilty. And I want to get into the weeds here a little bit. I want to start off with scaffolding because we hear terms like scaffolding, I think, thrown around in a lot of therapy circles and all of that. For the listener who is currently staring at a pile of laundry, so, on their doom chair, or maybe they're just feeling overwhelmed. How do you explain scaffolding, what it is in a practical daily sense?
Yeah, so scaffolding has absolutely saved my life. And because my core drive to get diagnosed has to do with the loss of scaffolding and the loss of goals, it was really the solution that I needed. And I think it took a really long time for me to find the right way to do it. And scaffolding has like so many different ways that you can look at it. There's like meta scaffolding, which in my opinion is looking at like, okay, well, where like what is the framework of where you want to go in your life in general, like how do you want to think about your years. And I years are a little bit overwhelming for me to think about, so generally I like to think in seasons, so that's my equivalent of a year, so I'll have 4 years in a year because
Hmm.
then it allows you to be able to switch things easily. So I would say for me scaffolding is how do you think about a season, how do you think about a month, how do you think about a week, and then within your day how do you think about scaffolding your day. So how do you start it? How do you end it? And scaffolding for me, a lot of it is also what can you automate of your thinking so you don't have
Mm,
to every time you pick something up, you're rethinking through how to do this thing. Where do I start? What is the first step? What is the last step? When do I stop? And so the more you can automate it and put it into your scaffolding, and scaffolding is essentially just walls, basically walls that you've predetermined around your life, that you can still move. So it doesn't sound big
right.
and scary and rigid. You can still move it, but having a sense of generally how these things will go, your season, your month, your day is really helpful because with ADHD, we're time blind for most of us. So when you can institute those things and automate them and have them just kind of start to run on autopilot a little bit, you could probably never get to full autopilot, but you can kind of work towards it so that you're not spending all of your spoons in a day just
Right.
thinking through things that you've thought about before.
And as you described that, it kind of makes me think of some of the like the neurotypical systems that are out there sometimes, right? That sometimes we, I don't want to say forced, but are encouraged to use sometimes. Like a lot of us have to deal with this just do it mentality. We think
Hmm.
that, if we just, you know, bought the right planner or if we, wake up earlier every day, that it would just suddenly fix our problem. But it doesn't always work that way. And so I'm curious from your experience, why do you think standard neurotypical systems almost always fail for ADHD brains like ours?
Yeah, it's because it doesn't consider emotional regulation. It doesn't consider all
Yeah,
of our executive functioning challenges, essentially, around time management, procrastination, getting started, finishing. So it just kind of gives you the end point. Like if you need to do a task, it's like, okay, well, put the 4 tasks in your calendar and then you'll just do them. It's like, well, no, if I could do that, then I wouldn't have ADHD. It's more so having the conversation with yourself around, okay, I have these 4 tasks, which ones are truly important for me, which ones link towards what's going to make me happy in my life. And once I do
right.
that, it's going to make me want to do the thing. So there's also this internal push. It's not just about external hacks around. The external hacks are really helpful. So, for example, take that task, find the first 2 minutes. Those things are all really helpful tasks, but you also need that internal motivation that comes not just from willpower. Because I think with a lot of neurotypical systems, it's just like the just do it, which is basically
Hmm.
just willpower. Can you just sit down and just do it because you have to? And
Right.
that is just going to cause a rebellion inside of our brains.
It makes me think of things that one of the things that I've embraced are things like body doubling, which I love, and I
Yes.
know that's a huge strategy that you talk about as well. And I think anytime I bring that up, I think sometimes people just view it as just kind of like hanging out, but it's a lot deeper than that. I think there really is a real science behind it. So, if you don't mind, can you explain why does simply having another human present, even if they aren't necessarily helping with the task, why does that suddenly sometimes make our executive dysfunction a little bit more manageable?
Yeah. So accountability is one of the main drivers, along with
Mm,
urgency, novelty, passion, challenge. Those are drivers that each one will resonate differently with a different person. And for me personally, accountability is by far my number one
mhm.
motivator. So I know
Yeah,
it works for me, but there's a few things happening in there. One is there's that positive social accountability. So if you're sitting there with someone, or even if you're in a cafe, you kind of feel a little bit, I guess maybe if you're in the cafe, you kind of feel embarrassed if you're going to be just scrolling the whole time. You're like, oh, I should
Sure.
do something. I'm here. Other people can see me. And then there's also the fact that I think when you do body doubling too, like there's ways even within body doubling that you can make it more likely that you're going to succeed. So there's also a commitment aspect. So if you say out loud in the beginning, hey, I'm going to do laundry this whole time, you're more
Hmm.
likely going to be doing it because you know that the other person, even though you logically understand they probably don't care if you switch to do something else, but you know that you've
Hmm.
told it to them and therefore
Right.
you're more likely to follow through. It's kind of like that thing where if you do laundry for someone else, you're more likely to get it done because
Yeah.
it's not your thing and you don't feel like you're going to let someone else
Are
down.
you
So
offering to do my laundry, Chris? Because I have plenty that needs to get
I
done that
do
I've been
too. I
putting
need to
off.
do laundry this weekend.
If we didn't live on opposite sides of the country, you know.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think what's interesting about body doubling too is that people always think that you need to do it with someone else.
Hmm.
One of my favorite types of body doubling is actually whenever I need to do something physical. Like the last time I did this was when I was building a desk. I knew that I wasn't gonna start the desk or finish the desk, but then I just took a tripod, I put my phone on it, and I hit time lapse, and I did
Oh,
not stop until I built that desk because the time lapse was moving. It's kind of a
yes.
smaller version of that is when you put a timer or like a Pomodoro timer in front of you and you click start. You're way less likely to abandon it because it kind of feels like the time is running and you feel the
Mm.
time. And with the camera even more so, like you don't want to end up seeing that video and you run away for the whole time and then come back. So
Yeah,
when I'm moving houses, I also use time lapse all the time, and it's also a little bit of a reward at the end because seeing that time lapse is really cool. And so I
sure.
think that's a really cool way that if you don't have access or it feels like too many spoons to kick off a body doubling session with someone else, you can obviously join doubling sessions as well. So there's differing like lower and lower effort versions if you haven't tried body doubling before that you can move into. But I would definitely do the time lapse or just try putting on a Pomodoro timer yourself and just writing down that, oh, I'm going to do this, put the timer on and start with like 20, 25 minutes. And that already is, you're kind of body doubling yourself or you're body doubling
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. Another thing that I admire about you, Chris, is that you work with so many different communities. You work with the LGBTQ plus community, you work with the Asian American Pacific Islander community, you work with students and more. But do you find that the barriers to setting up systems like these look different depending on those cultural or identity backgrounds?
Yeah, I think everything that we work on in coaching is so contextual. It's contextual to the person and it's contextual to the goals that they have in life, which is why I think coaching is so powerful because it's really personalized. I think a lot
Mm,
of the times what people do is they hear from a creator that something worked in a specific way and then they go out there and they do it in the exact same way. And even if the creator is ADHD and the intent is good, but what that happens is you try this thing and then it doesn't work and then you feel like it didn't work because of you or you're doing it wrong or whatever it is. And so a lot of the times with coaching, what you're doing is you're working on, okay, well, why are you instituting this in the first place? What maybe motivators in your life can you bring in to adapt this differently? What, to your point, like identity or culture background that you have that might make this resonate differently with you. And so all of those things will differ regardless if it's the identity based culture or just like the goal that you have in life or the life area that you're focusing on. So I think it's really important that when people see hacks or tips or trips or tricks or whatever it is to take the kernel of it with a grain of salt and then think through, how does this really fit in my life and what adaptations do I need to make to it? And then if it doesn't work the first time, instead of just abandoning it, thinking, okay, why didn't this work? Which part of
right.
it didn't work? And then trying something a little bit different and experimenting with that.
As you describe that, as I think about the various cultures and communities, the first thing that pops into my head is safety, accessibility is another thing,
Hmm.
and I want to dig a little bit deeper into that mental side. Starting with you, like you are a female founding uh, uh, founder leading a team of coaches and creators who largely, I'm not saying all of them, but largely identify with having ADHD or managing ADHD or whatever it may be. I have to imagine that managing a company where a large amount of people have executive functioning management tasks at hand, it must be interesting. How do you lead and build a business where the whole aspect of it in this business revolves around a person's brain that's not wired necessarily with consistency? How like how how is it hard? Like how do you go about leading a business like that?
It's really helpful, honestly, that I
Mm,
have ADHD. I think that even I mean, you were just in our creator campaign.
yeah.
Because I think that if I were a creator, this is where I would forget what happened. This is where I wouldn't know
Yes.
what the deliverables were. This is where I'd
Yes.
forget something. So you see me in the WhatsApp chats coming in at the exact right times. I don't come in a week
The
in advance
perfect
saying,
times.
yeah, I don't say, this is what's happening next week. I'll be like, just as a reminder, this is happening today. And then tomorrow, as a reminder, this is the deadline. So
Yes.
I know when I would personally, if I was not the person running it, I would be this is where I would drop off. And so because of that empathy and that experience, I think about it with our products. I think about it with our team. I think about it with the creators and the partners that we work with. And so I think because I can guess where people would fall short, because that's where
Yeah.
I would fall short, it becomes easier to design around it. And I think I always kind of speak not super highly about the times where I was working consulting because it was so rigid and there's so many things that I didn't like about it. But there are a lot of things that I didn't realize that I learned. And one thing was in consulting, I led a lot of multi-day workshops. And
Mm,
that is basically, and you plan down to okay, here we're going to put these sticky notes here and ask people this question. And those sticky notes are going to turn into these things. So I think
yeah.
through that experience, um, even though there's a lot of things I didn't like, I learned a lot of skills that I'm now seeing apply in different types of ways. Because what we would do is we would just sit with the whole team and think through exactly what the experience of the people in the workshop are going to be. And so that skill I think has translated um into my products, into like all of our partnerships that we do. And then that paired with like the ADHD empathy.
Yeah, no, I think that thank God that you understand because it's actually come in handy as somebody that's within this ADHD WhatsApp group. It actually was incredibly helpful, especially for me personally, with how busy my January
Hmm.
was. And thankfully, it's slowing down now. But the beginning of January, I was all over the place. So you did come in at the right time and the perfect time to help there. And it's funny. I want to go back for a second because you had mentioned on the consultant side the things that you didn't like doing. And we talk a lot about the ADHD tax, just at least I do on the on my platform. But I think there is also this emotional tax of I guess constantly sometimes needing tools to function, to be proactive so that we can manage our ADHD. And you had mentioned things that you didn't like doing. I'm curious from an ADHD perspective, do you ever in this current day have moments where you resent having to scaffold, where you sometimes wish that you didn't need an app or you didn't need to body double in order to get through the day? Is there does that ever happen to you?
I've thought about this before, and I somehow feel like, well, one, I'm a very optimistic, positive person. It's just somehow how I've
I can attest to that.
become
That is
this
true.
way. So, with a grain of salt, but I think that I would if every problem that I face, I don't somehow put it into our product or our systems. And then immediately within a few weeks see other people benefiting from it.
Mm,
So, it kind of feels like my problems and the things that I'm going through have a bigger purpose than just me. So if I was just going through it and had to have all these tools and had to make them and had to use them, I think I would feel a little bit more different. Because right now, if I'm struggling with something, I will think about that struggle and I will say, oh, well, what could be different in indie that could help me with it? Or what
mhm,
could be different in Shimmer that could help me with it? And then within a few weeks, I'll directly hear that feedback from a member being like, oh, I really like that this was added. And
right.
so I think that really helps. I created Shimmer right after I was diagnosed with ADHD, so it's hard to
Yeah.
say what it would have looked like otherwise. But pre-diagnosis, I didn't even know that I really had tools or that I was doing all these coping mechanisms. I wasn't really aware. I just thought that everyone else was as well. So I think maybe I have the blessing of ignorance that
Sure.
I didn't have to do this on my own, I think. I had a coach since pretty much day one. And all the challenges I was facing, I've heard it, I hear it every day from everyone else. And then I can directly create solutions. And I'm like, I like building things. So me being able to immediately build things and then see it out in the world in like a couple of weeks um is really helpful. I don't know if that's helpful to other people
Yeah,
though.
no, yeah, no, I get it, and I feel as though there is a thin line though between support and dependency. So
Mm.
how can we ADHD folk use things like body doubling or coaching to empower ourselves, I guess, without feeling like we can't function alone?
Yeah, that's actually we just had a big debate slash conversation about this internally yesterday
Mhm.
around because with indie we can create any feature we want and we look at all of the user feedback and what people ask for is always things that may create dependency over time. Like they'll be like, I just want this app out to start a task for me every single time.
Mm,
And
mhm.
we have this debate around like, okay, well, if we were to start this task for them every single time, would they be able to, if theoretically we had a way to do that, would they
Right.
then not be able to start the task without the indie app? And therefore, how should we approach this to be able to help them build the competency such that they can start this task whether or not indie is there? And so
Mhm.
I think that there's some things that are calculator where you should just not have to worry about it, and ideally, it's just done for you, and then I think there's other things that it's ideal in our opinion that you're building that competency or you're thinking about we're helping the member think about what needs to change in their life, whether it's environmental, it's communicating with other people, such that this doesn't become a problem anymore instead of continuing to needing to solve this problem over and over again with an app or a crutch.
It's funny because I often think of how life has been since the pandemic, since 2020, and there is this sort of like isolation that has happened because of that, like as a result of us, for an entire year at one point, just being by ourselves and not being able to connect with people. I've heard you talk about being seen and being heard and how that is essential for the healing process.
Mm.
How does the isolation of today's world, working from home, the digital disconnect that may happen, how does the isolation threaten that healing process for neurodivergent people?
Yeah, it's tough if you are going through the diagnosis process or post-diagnosis process, you realize that you have ADHD or any other sort of neurodivergences, and you don't have someone in your life that you can be able to trust and talk to. Um, that's really tough, or you don't have a community. Um, and when you're in school, when you're in high school and maybe even college, you're just automatically around people. And now with a lot of our adult lives, especially people who work from home, you don't automatically just see people. So I
Mhm.
think it's more important that depending on each person's goals and is making sure that you are looking at all of your life areas and figuring out, are you happy with where you are in all of them? And that might be knowing ADHD people in your life. That might be community, it might be family, it might be love, whichever part of friendships, whatever it is. And then to actively figure out what actions you want to take. Very small actions are fine, but very small actions you want to take to be able to move forward on those things. And that's something that we see a lot with both Shimmer and Indie members is that people generally come in and because the most important thing in their life oftentimes is productivity related. They'll just be like, I just want to be more productive. I just want to be more productive. And I mean, you went through the app. It helps you think more widely about your
Mhm.
life because
Mhm.
a lot of the times people just try to become more productive but they go in just a direction, the direction that they just happen to be pointed in, whether it was externally enforced on them, whether they just didn't think about it and just landed on it. And if you do that in the long run, you end up not happy, you end up burnt out because you're gonna go really fast. In the best case, you'll go really fast, end up somewhere and not be happy because you didn't choose it or you let go of other things that are important to you in your life. Or in the worst case, that you tried to go faster, you couldn't go faster, burnt yourself out, and you realized that you weren't going in the right direction to begin with. So it is really important to look at everything holistically. And if that involves, and for most people it does, other people, is to actively invest in those areas. And as adults working from home, it just requires a bit more intentionality and effort than it used to do that.
That's why I'm so thankful for you and for Shimmer and for things like Indie, because it does help so many people feel seen. Especially like the content that you make just as a content creator, you help people, like especially women, feel seen. Like there's a lot of people that I know personally, and this before I even met you, that were already following you, that connected with what you believe in, and the feeling of being seen, I think, is why I was so excited to partner up with Shimmer on literally anything because when you reached out to me about a new project, indie, I was like, oh hell yeah! It wasn't even like a it wasn't even like a question. I want to talk about this because what you create these communities, and even more specifically now, you create these tools that help people address and manage. Like we've been talking a lot about the indie app just now. You and the team, you have launched indie. I've played with it. A lot of the ADHD content creators that I know and follow, they've played with it as well. And to me, it feels different than the usual productivity app.
Hmm.
It just feels different. It seems a lot more personable, and I really appreciate that. For the people that are listening or watching right now that don't know what indie is, can you introduce indie to the audience and explain how it acts as that digital scaffolding that we talked about earlier? Can you talk about indie a little bit?
Yeah, so Indie is a completely free app for ADHD. We currently are calling it a copilot. We're open to new names. It really is. It is meant to help you figure out what's important to you and then take the steps that are required for you to move towards it. So it is not a productivity app, and it's kind of like what I was talking about
Mm-hmm.
before in terms of it's not about just running as fast as you can in a random
Right.
direction. So it will take you through some of the exercises for you to understand what's important to you. It'll help you keep that top of mind as well, because a lot of the times it's not about the fact that we don't know what's important to us, is that we don't constantly keep it top of mind. And then it's easy to get off track or just say yes to anything in front of us. So it helps you keep it top of mind. You can like add widgets and put it on your home screen. And then every day, depending on how much you want to engage with it, it'll help you move towards those things. And those things don't have to be productivity things. They could be
Mm-hmm.
around friendship, around love, around self care. And so, for example, like one of the things that people really like is if you do check in the morning, and some people like the morning ones, some people like the nighttime ones, but if you do check in the morning, it helps you take maybe all of the chaos that you have in your head. And then you say, I don't know which one to work on first. I don't even know which one's important. And it'll ask you, like, how do these things link to the things that you have declared are important to you? And sometimes just
Mm-hmm.
that question alone, I'm like, oh, wait, actually, like 10 of these fall off. And it'll help
Right.
you walk you through that thought process so that you end up with 1 to 3 things a day that are really important and that will move you towards the life that you want. And then if you finish other stuff, that's great. And then also it helps with the reflective process. So at nighttime, it'll ask you kind of which wins that you had. And for a lot of folks, they can't come up with wins, but Indie is trained to be able to help you parse out even little wins. It could be how you showed up or how you reacted to something. It's really about rewiring our brains to think that wins are not just achievements. It's not like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't finish my 20 pages I wanted to write and therefore I'm a failure. Instead, it's, hey, you have been struggling to even pick up your pen for the last few days, and Indy can remember that and say that actually today was the first day that you did that. And then it'll ask you questions like, hey, what did you do differently today? And then you can reflect on that, which then it will save that kernel. And later on, if you're struggling again, it can help you be able to get that again. So the idea is that it is supporting in the thinking and the remembering, but it is not doing the thinking for you. It's not doing the
Mm-hmm.
action for you. So that at the end of the day, you should feel more confident in yourself. You should feel more competent in the things that you can do. And that's really the goal of Indie, to be there for you, to help be this like actually one way that members have described it is like a mirror to help be
Yeah.
this mirror to yourself and ask you the right questions at the right time, but not take away that agency and autonomy.
Yeah, and I feel like in a way it kinda plays a role in because I know for a lot of people, especially myself, the hardest part of my ADHD is that that resistance to starting something, and
Hmm.
in a way, it kind of indirectly helps me, I found start something because it is a very validating, supportive, experience that indie, provides, at least for me, to kind of break through that initial paralysis that I have sometimes. If somebody were to download the indie app today, like right now, as soon as this interview is done, what do you suggest should be the first thing that they do with it just to kinda get a sense of relief or maybe get that win that they might be looking for? That dopamine
Yeah.
hit that they might be looking for?
So, depending on how much time you have, there's this storyline exercise inside of the app. If you
Mhm,
want to get really reflective, it helps you look at your past and your future and give you some insights on it. Some folks are not ready to do that right away. And so, if that's the case, if you have a challenge at hand, which most of the times we do, there
mhm,
actually is a problem solving agent in there as well. So, that will help you take your challenge, get clear on what it is, and then help you explore what the solution could be. And that's where I think it's really, really powerful because it's rooted in, just get nerdy for 1 second. It's rooted
mhm,
in um, a framework called the COM-B model. So it's a behavior change
mhm,
model that says that the solutions generally fall into three buckets. It could be capability. So does your mind or body have what it needs or the skills? It could be O, which is opportunity. So that's your environment. So does your environment even support the thing that you're trying to do? And then the third one is motivation. So that's essentially your brain want to do it right now or not. And a lot of the times we try to find solutions just in the motivation, which is like willpower. If I just think it really hard and count to five, then I'm going to do it.
yeah,
And so this helps you widen your solution set to think through what actually is the barrier so that you're not just taking one solution that you happen to have and just hammering it at any single problem you have. And the idea here with that problem solving agent too is that as you go through it multiple times, you start to just know these things. Like now I know this model really well. So when I'm hitting a challenge, I'll kind of lightly skim through that model in my head. I won't have the full conversation, but I'll kind of look through those things and say like, okay, like what actually is happening here? And that will help a lot because we find so often people find like a hack or something like that and they're just like this must work for everything and then they feel really bad when it doesn't work in certain situations. But problems are just so contextual to what's going on in front of you, and also maybe you're at your parents' house instead of your house, and suddenly the
mhm.
environment's really different. And you keep you think that it's a skill thing that's missing, but really it's an environment thing. And you need to change something in your environment, maybe temporarily at your parents' house to be able to get the thing that you need to get done. So that's another really great place to start if you are leading with a problem.
We're about, I guess, a little over 2 weeks after the launch of this. How are you feeling? Because I know you and the team worked so hard to get it to this point, and now it's out there for the world to navigate and get a feel for and provide their feedback and their thoughts and all of that. How are you feeling 2 weeks after launching now that it's out there in the world?
I think it's always this is how I feel after every launch. I'm just like, you get a lot of feedback and you get more and more feedback and you just want to
Yeah.
fix everything. So I'm definitely in the fix mode because we
Yeah.
get a lot of feedback. We did many, many rounds of beta user interviews. And so the bigger things had been kind of addressed already, but there's still smaller things that we you can never really anticipate until someone experiences it in a certain
Mhm.
way. And so those are really fascinating to me. They're kind of my favorite types of problems to solve, but it kind of uh it always does this with me. I mean, I always do this where it takes away from the win of the launch because now I'm in problem solving mode. But
Yeah.
I on the few launch days and on the few creators posting days, I did put that stuff into Indie and I put the photo as well once we had the photo functionality uploaded. So I was able to celebrate those wins for a longer period than I normally would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a solutioner, so I struggle
Hmm.
to like feel wins. And actually, that was
Yeah.
one of my like biggest system slash hacks that I actually learned back when I was in consulting.
Hmm.
It's to keep a folder. So in consulting, I had an email folder called a feel good folder, where if
Hmm.
anyone gave me any praise or I had a piece of work that I was proud of, I would put it into that email folder. But now I just have my indie wins, which is
Yeah.
really good because you can tag photos to them as well. But I'm the type of person, and a lot of our members are, who definitely need these reminders of the wins. And even when I was doing the partner summit this weekend, being just writing down all the wins from 2025, I was like, wow, like actually a lot of cool things happened. I
Yeah.
forgot about those.
Yeah, yeah. We have reached that point, Chris, in the Vibe with Kai podcast where we have a segment called Reverse the Mic, where I turn the mic over to you and it becomes the Chris Wang show for a couple minutes. And you get to ask me anything that you like. And this is exclusive for all of our subscribers on Patreon and on Facebook. And you get some exclusive content here that not everybody gets to see. And so, Chris, you get to ask me anything that you want, and I have to answer it. So I turn the mic over to you, my friend. Welcome to the Chris Wang Show. I'm happy to be a guest.
Okay. Actually, in the beginning, I held off on giving you your flowers, so I can give you your flowers now.
Oh,
I did wanted to say when you were, I don't even remember what you were giving me flowers for anymore, but that doesn't matter. I just wanted to say that then this came from multiple people on our team as well, that you are just so good vibes and generous, and it comes off in so many different ways. And it's just been such a pleasure meeting you and getting to work with you, and now going through the campaign we did together. But even in your answer that you just gave now, which is what brought me back to the original flowers, you're just so generous. I love it. It comes
I'm the
through your
same as
face.
you, where I am not good at. I'm learning to take it, and so I've learned to say things like "I accept that."
I was
I'm
taught, Ari actually taught me a framework. She said, you say thank you and then you tell them how it made you feel.
Thank you. That made me feel very validated, and I appreciate you saying that, and it means a lot to me. It means a lot.
Oh,
So thank you.
we're just two
We
awkward
are.
compliment
We
receivers.
are. Chris, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the work that you do, the work that Shimmer does. I appreciate the indie app. I appreciate the community that you build. And I appreciate you spending time with me here today. I mean, can we just talk about that concept of scaffolding for a second? I think for so long, I looked at using tools or needing help as weaknesses, like I was cheating at life. But Chris really hit the nail on the head. It's not cheating, it's just infrastructure. If you want to check out the new indie app that we talked about during the episode, it is completely free to all of you, and I implore you to start using it. Go show it some love. In the show notes of this episode, I have the link for that indie app. Also, I have the link for all of Chris's social media channels and all of Shimmer's social media channels. And again, a massive thank you to our presenting sponsor, Sucre Bay. Do yourself a favor and go treat yourself to a bottle of Why Did I Walk Into This Room? You deserve to smell amazing while you're navigating the chaos of life. Now, if you're listening to this or watching this and you're thinking, Kai, I need some more scaffolding right now, don't worry, I got you. Head on over to my ADHD digital store because I put together the ultimate ADHD toolkit for you. It includes all of my ADHD guidebooks that I've written, including Navigating Adulthood with ADHD, Navigating Finance with ADHD, and also my audiobooks. It is literally a manual for your ADHD brain, and you can grab it at thevibewithkai.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear Chris grilling me on Reverse the Mic, you can get access to that segment if you come join us and subscribe on Patreon or on Facebook. It's only $5 a month, and you get exclusive access to that, plus my entire ADHD deep dive library that isn't available anywhere else. But that is it for today, my friends. Once again, thank you so much for watching and for listening. As always, much love, good vibes. I'll catch you next time. Bye.